Chapter 20. Tiptoe Through the Two Lips. As the sky began to turn that pre-dawn purple, I pulled up to my new home. All the lights were off in the house in front of me as I sat in my car in Elaine's driveway. I gathered up my backpack and texted Elaine to let her know I was there. The early morning mosquitoes were as bad as they had been at the sex club house outside Lansing. I reached the porch and I set down my backpack. I unzipped it and sprayed myself with bug spray. I had an idea, and I knew I needed bug spray before executing my plan. Elaine hadn't responded to my text. She was still asleep. I waited to call her to attempt to wake her up. I wanted to get ready to make a maximum impact on our first meeting. The property was huge, and the porch I stood on was far back from the street. Few cars were passing at that hour, and the house far across the street was still dark without activity. I stripped off all my clothes and stood there on the porch of my new residence. I smiled. It was then that I video called Elaine to finally wake her up to let me inside. Elaine was a single white female. She was a generation older than me. She had a quality which exuded classiness and sensuality. Her straight blonde hair flowed down to the top of her chest, and it was all cut to the same length. Her body was elegantly thin, with curves in the appropriate places. She was 5'6". Had I not known her age, I would have guessed her to be much younger. I kept my drug use to myself while I settled into my life in New York. Elaine and I braved the mosquitoes and made love amongst the trees and brush deep in the backyard. I did housework and worked on my car's stereo once Elaine left to work her job in the daytime. When she came home from work, the two of us drove around the city, frequenting restaurants and ice cream shops. We drove to mountain overlooks to watch the sun as it set above the mountains. On weekends, I went with Elaine to a mountainside ranch where her horse was stabled. While she rode her horse, I made videos of the scenery around me. Elaine showed me around the area where she had spent her life. We drove into the city. We took trips to the Hudson River. I wished I felt I fit in. I felt out of place. I felt the same as I had in Ohio, like I was looking through a window to catch a glimpse of a life that wasn't mine. I felt empty inside. I felt bad that I couldn't just fit into my new life in a large, comfortable home in a pretty new location with a kind and beautiful woman. A thought echoed in my mind, something about people not being able to run away from themselves. The drugs kept me going, but my happiness was fleeting. Elaine saw, no matter what, I couldn't be happy. It was the story of my life, but she took it personally. I didn't know how to share my thoughts with her and let her know it wasn't anything against her. I didn't know how to sort it out within myself. I woke up one morning to a note while Elaine was at work. She expressed sadness in the note. She told me in writing that after a month of the way we were living, it wasn't able to continue. I felt bad. I hadn't lived up to her expectations. I did as the note advised, and I left before Elaine arrived home from work that evening. I was in my head as I drove down the Taconic State Parkway that afternoon. I found a motel and got a room amongst the mountain backdrop of the highway. I walked down the front of the motel to my room. I opened the door and stepped inside. After a thorough bedbug check, I brought in all the bags from my car. I sat on one of the beds after I spread out my belongings on the other and pulled out my phone to continue a text conversation with a Jamaican transgender girl from Poughkeepsie. We had been in contact the prior week. I had planned to leave Upstate New York the next morning. I planned to stop at Niagara Falls for the 5th time in 2019. "You can't leave New York until we see each other, promise me. You'll have to come see me tonight." "Alright, I'll be over once I'm off work. I'll spend the night." Shara and I did hot rails on the motel bed. We undressed and began an incredibly unique and long expression of intimacy, one that continued at the motel until the following morning. After a short break while we switched locations that next morning, we resumed once we reached Shara's top-floor apartment in downtown Poughkeepsie. Our intimacy at the motel began our checking off of items from each of our bucket lists. Shara accomplished 2 of the items she had always wished to try. One of those was a first for me as well. I then checked off a bucket list item of my own. Shara was happy to oblige. Our drug use and intimacy amplified once we were in Shara's apartment. Shara had a balcony and a sunroom outside her apartment. Those spots, along with the rest of her apartment, were used to the fullest. The two of us got high continuously as we remained intimate. In conversation, we shared our individual tastes in music and movies, art and life. By the 3rd day at Shara's apartment, she was beginning to fall out. She didn't have the experience or tolerance which I had with Crystal. As she readied herself for sleep, I took a hot rail to the face. one which was so large that the cloud filled up the entire room. That was when I knew I made a mistake. The fire alarm in Cher's building was wired into the fire station of the city of Poughkeepsie. The cloud I had blown out was too much. The light flashed on and off while the warning horn shrieked at a deafening volume. I set off the alarm for the entire building. I also set off the alarm at the Poughkeepsie fire station. I couldn't believe I had done that, and I couldn't believe Cher hadn't warned me before it came to that. Cher dressed to go outside with the rest of the tenants filing out onto the street. I dressed quickly as well, but I remained upstairs and began to put away any evidence of drugs. I sprayed aerosol deodorizer once I stashed the evidence. While Cher had gone to explain and apologize to her neighbors, I knew at any moment the fire department would be coming up to the apartment to shut off the alarm. Cher told me the response time to the fire alarm was only 5 minutes. I knew she was going to try to stall the emergency responders. I knew she had 3 flights of stairs to ascend with the responders before they entered the apartment, and I knew I had to get every window open on both sides of the apartment to create a cross breeze to clear out the drug smoke. The wind, once the windows were open, swept the smoke outside. The aerosol covered the smell of methamphetamine. Cher and the fire department walked in right after I had done all I could to decontaminate the apartment. My actions had been enough. After a quick look around, and after one of the responders turned off the alarm, the fire department left. We were relieved. Once we watched the fire truck drive away, I breathed a sigh of another hot rail. Cher and I both got naked again. We climbed into bed to get some sleep. It had been a long and eventful week. I knew I had a long drive the next day. I also knew I was still going to make that 5th visit of the year to Niagara Falls. I thought about how I was about to leave what was once a hopeful and promising new opportunity to make a life in upstate New York, an opportunity I had squandered away like everything else.